Now, it's that time of the year again when authors, actors, journalists and autograph hunters descend on a Gloucestershire town for a 10-day celebration of all things literary. The 59th Cheltenham Literature Festival is into its third day, and our correspondent Nick Hyam is there for us again with a very special guest. Lucky you, Nick. Over to you.
Yes, indeed, Tim. Welcome back to what they call the Writers' Room here in Cheltenham Town Hall, which is the hub around which this literature festival revives. And I'm joined by one of Britain's best-known and most successful television writers, the man behind New Who. He took the old Doctor Who, he revived it, he revamped it, he breathed new life into it, and he made it one of the most successful shows on British television. In case you need reminding, here is a clip from the last Christmas episode, the Christmas episode 2007.
You enjoying the cruise?
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know. You don't quite work a cruise on your own.
You're not with anyone?
No, just me. Just, used to be, but, no. What about you? A long way from home, Planet Stowe.
Doesn't feel that different. Spent 3 years working at the spaceport diner. Travel all the way here. Still waiting on tables.
No shore leave?
We're not allowed. They can't afford the insurance. I just wanted to try it. Just once. I used to watch the ships heading out to the stars. I always dreamt of... Sounds daft.
You dreamt of another sky. New sun. New air, new life. A whole universe teeming with life.
Well, the writer is, of course, Russell T. Davies, and he joins me now. He's agreed to answer your questions. Russell, thanks very much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure to be here.
Just before we go any further, you've written a book. It's called The Writer's Tale. It's a series of email exchanges over a year of the writing and production of Doctor Who. It's a fascinating insight, I will say this, having read it, into the production process. Now, you've agreed to answer questions which have been emailed in. We've been deluged by them, hundreds of them. But let me ask you one which I know you can answer because you address it in the preface to the book. This is from Bonnie Stewart in Birmingham. She wants to ask you where your ideas for the Doctor Who and Torchwood plots come from and who inspires you the most.
Well, that's the classic question. That is why I wrote a book in the end, because every writer gets asked that. Every writer wonders that themselves, actually, because there is no proper answer. That's why it's such a big book, actually. But they come from everywhere. They come from every moment of your life, because you're always thinking about scripts all the time, so it's constant inspiration from the world. I just passed a marvellous road sign in Cheltenham that's with an arrow that says "Surrealism Returns." With an arrow point, and I just thought, there's an idea. That's going to be a story in that somewhere.
And you talk about this sort of great soup of ideas spinning around in your head that you call the maybe.
Yes, so I only call it that for the book, really, but it's the potential in your head for anything to happen at any time in a script, and it's your job to sort of rein it all in and corral it. So it's a nice life being a writer. I love it.
OK, here's a question from Andrew in Burwell in Cambridgeshire. When the show was brought back in 2005, he asked, were you ever apprehensive that you might have changed it a little too far?
Oh, that's interesting, Andrew. No, not at all. I was apprehensive whether people would come and watch, and whether they'd like it, and whether children who'd never heard of it would want to come and watch it. But I never worried about changing because I knew that I hadn't. The fundamentals were all still there. I was an old-school Doctor Who fan myself, so I thought there'd be one or two fans of old-school Doctor Who would say that's not for me. And that's fair enough. Time, life moves on, all that sort of stuff, and I think there only were one or two in the end, so I was fairly confident about that.
OK, this one from Lewis Maddox in Burnley. He says, from the launch and revival of Doctor Who in 2005, did you have a 4-year plan for your era? Did you decide to do so many years before passing on the torch, or was it a decision you made simply when you thought the time was right? Because you have, of course, announced you're bowing out.
Yes, next year. I sort of roughly felt my way through it. At the beginning, we never thought it would last for more than 1 year, to be honest. We thought, let's have a go at this. And then when I felt it was beginning to work, around about as we moved into Series 2, I sort of looked at it and thought, how long do I want to stay here? And this felt about right. I sort of thought, I'll do till a 4th year. And again, there wasn't exactly a plan for all that, but there's always a plan in your head, if you see what I mean. That's what part of being a writer's like. It's like you've got all these different options in your head. So that's why in the end you just call it a rough plan. which has now borne fruition.
OK, this one from Laurie Saffin in Pickering. Why did you decide to make romance such a large element of the new Doctor Who?
Simply because that's the way I write. There was never a decision where I sat down and decided that. I sort of thought that's the way I write, and I used to work in children's television. I've done 9 o'clock dramas, I've done 10 o'clock dramas on Channel 4. I think that's a vital pulse of the whole world and how people react and interact in the world. And I sort of thought, well, if the BBC wants me to do Doctor Who, they want me to write like I write. You've got to have the nerve and the confidence to do that. So that's just what they bought. That's the version they would always have had of me. That's how Doctor Who would be written now anyway, I think, if it had always stayed on air. I think that's just natural. I think the emotional content of television just gets deeper and richer and wiser as we get more insights into it. So it wasn't a choice at all. It's just, if you employ me, that's what you'll get, romance.
OK, this one from Philippa in Leeds. Is there anything in your work on Doctor Who that you'd change? Are there things that you regret you did or didn't do?
Oh, nothing I regret. Nothing. That's way too strong. It's like when you've written something, you always watch it thinking, oh, I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that. Oh, 2 years later you can think of a better line to end a scene with. It's bizarre. They never stop sort of cooking away in your head. But regret is massive, really. That would have to be something really disastrous. And plainly, we haven't done it. The show has stayed successful and stayed good and stayed popular, so I'm really proud of it.
Okay, the 8th of our questions. This one comes from Gary Ruddock in Newark. Are you sick and tired of the media labelling you as a gay writer, he says, and of accusing you of introducing gay agendas into a family show like Doctor Who?
That's interesting. The media doesn't do that. Only the internet does that, to be honest. And there's a little bit of it in the papers when I started, but from The Sun and stuff like that. But actually, at the end of the day, I am a gay writer. I'm gay and I'm a writer, and I absolutely don't mind, because I wrote a show many years ago called Queer as Folk that is 10 years old next year. And I like to think it's still remembered and still a powerful piece of work. And if that was my epitaph, I'd be very happy with that. And I do think I bring my sensibility is far more than just gay, but I do bring that entire sensibility to what I'm writing. So if you don't like it, don't watch.
And you do say in the book that you take opportunities like this to announce that you are proudly gay and so on, in order to counter any kind of residual homophobia there may be. The best answer to homophobia is, I think you say, visibility.
Absolutely, and there's far more than residual homophobia. There's still an awful lot around. And I think if you're 14 years old and sitting in school and all alone without anyone to talk to, I think if you can watch someone on television, anyone, whether you're an engineer or a scientist or a plumber or a writer or a politician or any sort of spokesman, and if you can see someone who's gay in that sort of job, that's a good thing. Because we are still, believe it or not, largely invisible, and it's a brilliant thing to be seen. It's for youth, really. It's for youth to sort of reach out and sort of say, actually, I can live a big, full, proper life.
Alan Hunt from Southampton, you've made a very successful job with Doctor Who. Are there any other sci-fi franchises that you'd relish the opportunity to reboot? If so, what are they?
No, I wouldn't do another one because I've done the best, frankly. But the BBC's doing Survivors now, an old Terry Nation series from the 70s that's on this autumn, and I heard good things about that. I'm really looking forward to that. Written by a man called Adrian Hodges, who's brilliant. So I think that's going to be terrific.